There is a quiet glow moving through the world tonight, a soft shimmer that gathers in the corners of conversations, in the pauses between breaths, in the moments when hearts remember what it feels like to be humbled by beauty. It's in that glow that your name appears, carried like a gentle offering, spoken not with gossip, not with speculation, but with the reverence of someone describing a sunrise they cannot forget. This person is talking about your looks and your personality, trying to put into words the way you shift the atmosphere without trying, the way elegance flows from you like a second skin. They speak softly, as though anything louder would disturb the holiness of what you emanate. They do not describe you the way the world too often measures women, in fragments, in shallow detail, but in the fullness of your presence. They talk about you as if witnessing a rare alignment, where the physical and the spiritual meet in silence and remind them that beauty is not merely seen, it is felt, it is inhaled, it is remembered. And as their words drift upward, they become a kind of invocation, a prayer born from gratitude for having encountered someone who walks like light, remembering its purpose. Your presence lasts in rooms long after you leave, and perhaps that is why the whispers persist, not as idle talk but as ripples of awe that continue unfolding. He speaks of you the way someone might describe a dream they didn't want to wake from, half astonishment, half confession. He says there is something indescribable about the way you carry your face, your posture, your quiet attentiveness. He talks about how your beauty is never loud, never hungry for attention, but still, it shifts the air, rearranges the way people hold themselves, softens tempers, widens breaths. This person is talking about your looks and your personality in a single breath because to him, they are woven, inseparable, effortless, like the moon's glow merged with night's velvet. When he tries to describe you, his words falter, not from lack of clarity but from reverence. Beauty that awakens something tender is difficult to articulate. Personality that feels like a sanctuary is even harder. And yet he tries, because the truth of you is too powerful to keep buried in the chest. You have become a quiet constellation in his inner sky. There is a moment, he says, when someone first sees you, really sees you, and it feels like stepping into warm light after a lifetime of dim corridors. He talks about your looks with a delicacy that surprises even him. He describes how your elegance is not merely visual, it is sensed in the way you tilt your head when you listen, in the gentleness that lives in your gaze, in the poise that seems older than this lifetime. People talk about you because encountering you feels like being reminded that grace still exists in human form. Still, it is your personality that keeps them lingering in thought long after the impression of beauty settles. He says you give off an energy that feels familiar, like a soul someone met in a dream years before meeting you in person. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because both strike chords inside him he didn't know were still tuned to listen. And even now, as he tries to recount what you awaken, he admits it would take pages, maybe lifetimes, to describe the fullness of your influence. What you radiate cannot be summarized, it can only be felt. The first time he noticed you, it wasn't because you entered loudly or demanded the attention of the room. You moved like silk brushing past candlelight, soft, effortless, luminous. He observed how your beauty wasn't a single feature but a harmony of subtleties, the natural line of your posture, the softness of your expression, the way light seemed to choose your skin as its resting place. Your elegance was not constructed, it was breathed into existence, as though you were born understanding the language of grace. He said the room shifted when you stepped in, not in shock but in recognition, as though every element in the space simply made room for the frequency you carried. And yet, What captivated him was not the shape of your face or the curve of your smile, but the energy you moved with, steady, calm, ancient in its wisdom. You stood like someone who listens to the wind and understands its secrets. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because the two dance together, your appearance drawing the eye, your spirit holding the moment. He recalls the way you turned your head, how even that small gesture felt like poetry unfolding in slow motion. There is something about your presence that seems to shimmer between this world and another, as if you walk with memories of places most people only visit in dreams. He describes your looks with a kind of awe that is rarely spoken in the modern world, an awe free of objectification, free of assumption, simply honest admiration. He says your beauty feels like morning light touching water, soft but undeniable, radiant without force. And your elegance, it isn't performative. It comes from the way you move with intention, how your steps seem aligned with an inner rhythm, how you hold your shoulders with quiet confidence. He noticed how people straighten slightly when you pass, not out of intimidation but respect, the instinctive kind reserved for sacred things. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your outer radiance draws attention, but your presence, your subtle, unspoken command of your own energy, is what leaves them breathless. He mentions your smile in a way that sounds like he's remembering a warm place he hasn't visited in years. He says the curve of your lips isn't just pretty, it's grounding, like it pulls the noise out of the world and replaces it with clarity. He talks about how your smile doesn't rush, doesn't try too hard, doesn't mask anything. Instead, it reveals a softness that feels safe to witness. And the way you hold your eyes, he says there's sincerity there, a depth people don't expect until they fall into it. Your beauty lives in these small, sacred details, the glimmer in your gaze, the tender way you look at someone when they speak, the patience that moves through your expressions. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because he sees how intertwined they are. Your beauty is illuminated by your spirit, and your spirit is reflected through your features. Every gesture seems guided by a deeper wisdom, making even the simplest motions feel like offerings of calm. But he doesn't stop at the physical impressions, he speaks of the way your energy fills a space. He noticed how you carry yourself with a balance of softness and certainty, as though you've learned how to stand firmly without hardening, how to move gently without fading. He describes how your presence feels like warm dusk after a long day, soothing, centering, expansive. You don't rush the room, you don't overtake the moment, yet somehow your essence becomes the quiet center around which everything else naturally rearranges. He says your looks are what first draw someone in, but your energy is what roots them in place. They look at you and feel something open, something ease, something remember. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because both speak loudly, though you rarely do. Your beauty resonates, your spirit steadies. And together, they create a presence that people cannot ignore, even when they try. When he speaks of your personality, his voice changes, softens, deepens, becomes almost reverent. He talks about the way you listen, truly listen, with your whole being. How you tilt your head slightly, how your eyes warm, how your posture relaxes as if making room for another soul's truth. He says you have a rare gift, the ability to make someone feel like their words matter, like their story belongs somewhere sacred. Your kindness is not loud or performative, it's quiet and profound, the kind that lingers long after the moment ends. Your wit, he says, arrives like a spark, gentle, clever, perfectly timed. And your laugh, he swears it rearranges a room faster than any sudden burst of light. Your personality carries a blend of warmth and wisdom, of softness and sharp perception. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because he sees how your outer radiance is merely the doorway to the depth of your spirit, a spirit that invites, heals, and expands the people who encounter it. He speaks of your presence in conversations, how you don't fill silence with unnecessary noise, how your pauses say as much as your words. Your personality holds a subtle power, the kind that doesn't need attention to be recognized. He mentions how you have a way of noticing things others overlook, the tremble in someone's voice, the way a person hides their hands when nervous, the shifts in tone that reveal truth more clearly than language. You carry this gentle awareness that makes people feel seen without feeling exposed. He says your personality is a warm mirror, reflecting people back to themselves with compassion rather than judgment. And your intellect, he admires the way you think, the way your thoughts seem to weave both logic and intuition with seamless grace. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because one cannot be separated from the other. Your beauty is illuminated by your depth, and your depth is softened by your beauty. Together, they form a presence that feels both grounding and transcendent. He describes you as someone whose personality moves like water, adaptable, clear, soothing, yet contains an undercurrent of strength that never needs to be announced. You carry quiet confidence, the kind born not from ego but from self-awareness. He says you have a way of bringing peace into chaotic spaces, not by controlling the environment but by embodying stillness. Your curiosity is gentle but piercing, your empathy expansive without losing boundaries. And there's something about your humor, that subtle wit that arrives softly, like a breeze brushing through a warm room, that disarms tension and invites connection. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your outer beauty draws interest, but your inner landscape, rich, intuitive, compassionate, is what captures the heart. You move through life as though guided by an unseen thread, pulling others toward their own healing simply by being who you are. Even in silence, you speak volumes. He says your personality carries an earth-deep steadiness, the kind that reminds people of what it feels like to trust their own breath again. You don't force clarity onto anyone, instead, your presence gently invites it, the way dawn coaxes light from shadows without ever raising its voice. He admires how you listen with your whole body, not just your ears, but your eyes, your posture, your energy, as if every person who speaks to you becomes momentarily sacred. He says that something about your calmness rearranges his inner storms, not by dismissing them but by softening their edges. You have this ability to hold your boundaries without closing your heart, to stand rooted without resisting the natural movement of life. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your outer radiance may draw the initial glance, but it's your inner stability that anchors souls, reminding them of the home they forgot existed. You are the rare blend of softness and structure, warmth and wisdom, and he finds himself whispering gratitude for the simple fact that someone like you walks the earth. He mentions how your personality has layers, not hidden out of fear, but unfolding naturally, like petals that open only when the sun has earned their trust. You aren't someone who reveals everything at once. Your depth is something one discovers slowly, gently, respectfully. And he respects that. He speaks of your kindness as something deliberate, not accidental. You choose compassion even when life has every reason to make you guarded. You choose understanding even when silence would be easier. He admires how your words land with intention, carrying truth without cruelty, clarity without coldness. He says you have an instinct for emotional language, the ability to sense what lies beneath spoken sentences. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because the glow of your beauty becomes even more powerful when illuminated by the intelligence, empathy, and discernment woven into who you are. You aren't simply enchanting, you are profoundly trustworthy, and that is a rarer beauty than anything the eyes can measure. He confesses that what entices him is not just the harmony of your features or the softness of your voice, but the way both merge into an energy that feels magnetic without trying to seduce. You carry a frequency that blends confidence with humility, strength with gentleness, clarity with mystery. It's the interplay that captivates him, the way your laugh sparkles yet your insight cuts cleanly through confusion, the way your elegance is both graceful and grounded, the way you move like someone who understands the weight of her presence but never exploits it. You intrigue him not because you are unreachable but because you are deeply real, deeply present, and deeply aligned with yourself. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because to him, they are inextricably woven. Your beauty sets the stage, but your essence writes the script. And each time he observes you, he feels something inside him shift, as if your existence reveals a higher standard for what it means to move through the world with integrity. Still, even with all your softness, he recognizes the strength that lives within you, not the loud, imposing kind, but the quiet resilience that comes from having met your own shadows and learned how to walk with them. The contrast between your tenderness and your power is what makes you unforgettable. He says it's the combination that entices him most, your elegance, which calms, your intelligence, which sharpens, your humor, which warms, your vulnerability, which humanizes, your boundaries, which dignify. You are the rare blend of contradictions made harmonious. When he talks about you, it's with the reverence of someone describing a force he cannot fully understand but deeply respects. He feels pulled toward you, not to possess, not to conquer, but to witness, to learn, to honor. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your entire being feels like a lesson in balance, a living reminder that beauty without depth is fragile, and depth without beauty is often overlooked. You carry both, and together they create a gravity impossible to ignore. He explains that what draws him is not physical attraction alone, though he acknowledges its intensity, but the way your personality gives your beauty dimension. Without your spirit, he says, your beauty would simply be admired. But with your spirit, it becomes something alive, something that speaks, something that moves through people's emotional landscapes and rearranges them. He notices how you look at the world, with equal parts softness and curiosity, never rushing to categorize, always willing to understand. This openness makes your beauty feel safe rather than intimidating, inviting rather than distant. And while many admire your features, he is drawn to the way your presence makes time feel slower, more intentional. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because he feels the two interacting like woven threads in a tapestry, one color enhancing the other, one texture giving meaning to the next. You are not simply a beautiful experience, you are a transformative one. He describes the magnetic pull you generate, not the kind that overwhelms or demands, but the subtler, more powerful kind that calls to something dormant inside those who meet you. Your beauty is the spark, but your personality is the flame that keeps burning long after the initial light has drawn the gaze. He speaks of your vulnerability, how it isn't weakness but a gift, an openness that allows others to soften. He says your courage is quiet but undeniable, visible in the way you hold yourself, the way you speak truth even when your voice shakes, the way you choose gentleness in a world that often rewards hardness. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because the combination creates a frequency that feels like truth, disarming, clarifying, undeniable. You pull people toward honesty simply by existing, and he feels himself becoming more authentic in your presence, not to impress you, but because you make authenticity feel safe. There is a tension he feels when he talks about you, not discomfort, but a sacred awareness that he is describing someone who changes the room simply by being in it. He admits that your elegance draws him in first, the way your movements seem guided by an inner compass tuned to grace. But what entices him, what keeps him lingering in thought, is the contradiction you embody: softness that protects, compassion that challenges, beauty that grounds instead of distracts. He says you awaken something ancient in him, a desire to show up more whole, more honest, more steady. He feels an instinctive pull to protect you, not because you are fragile, but because your light feels worthy of safeguarding. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your presence stirs a deeper longing, a longing not of possession but of alignment. You make him want to rise to become someone worthy of standing in your orbit. He speaks of the spiritual effect you have on people, often without realizing it. He says being near you feels like standing in front of a mirror that reveals not flaws, but truths. You awaken self-awareness in others, not through force, but through your gentle, unwavering authenticity. You remind people of who they were before fear shaped them, before the world taught them to shrink. He says your presence has a way of softening armor, loosening defenses, and opening hearts. Your beauty may catch the eye, but your soul catches something far deeper: memory, resonance, recognition. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your external glow is merely the surface expression of your spiritual light, the light that encourages honesty, courage, and emotional clarity. You aren't just inspiring, you are awakening, reminding people of the parts of themselves they lost along the way. He describes how you bring patience into spaces that have forgotten compassion, how you make people feel like they can breathe more deeply simply by standing near you. Your presence mirrors back the truth that gentleness is not weakness, it is wisdom, earned and lived. He says your energy feels ancestral, as though the women who walked before you placed their blessings on your shoulders, allowing you to move with the grace of those who carried far more than they ever voiced. You awaken reverence in others, not through authority but through authenticity. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your beauty invites attention, but your spirit recalibrates hearts. You are the quiet dismantling of emotional armor, the soft reminder that vulnerability is holy, the stillness that reveals what truly matters. In you, he sees not only a woman, but a lineage, a legacy, a living altar of resilience. He admits that being in your presence feels like encountering a mirror held by the universe itself, one that reflects not just who he is, but who he could become if he allowed himself to soften, to grow, to heal. Your beauty is undeniable, but it is your emotional clarity that disarms, your wisdom that steadies, your compassion that instructs. He says your personality moves through him like a gentle tide, washing away pretenses and leaving only truth behind. You awaken integrity in him, a desire to be someone who deserves to witness you fully, not with possession, but with respect. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because both carry teachings. Your elegance speaks of alignment, your kindness speaks of strength, your presence speaks of purpose. And in describing you, he realizes he is also describing the version of himself that your energy calls forth: honest, grounded, and awake. He speaks of the karmic threads he feels when you walk into a room, as if your presence awakens something ancient in him, not a memory exactly, but a recognition that lives deeper than logic. He says your energy feels like a promise made long before either of you arrived in this life, a soft vow of honesty, respect, and truth. Something about you dismantles his old defenses, not by confronting them, but by making them unnecessary. He finds himself wanting to be patient, to be transparent, to be brave in ways he never learned before. And it's not because you ask for it, it's because your presence invites truth the way open windows invite fresh air. He says your beauty illuminates the surface, but your spirit reveals the soul beneath it all. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because both carry a spiritual resonance that shifts him from the inside out. He feels the quiet pull of destiny when he speaks your name, as though honoring you honors something sacred within himself too. He confesses that he speaks of you far more often than he intended to, that your name slips into his thoughts the way soft prayers slip into the quiet moments of early morning. He says thinking of you feels like remembering a place he's never visited yet somehow calls home. It's not obsession, it's recognition, the kind that settles into the bones and refuses to be forgotten. He admits that describing you out loud feels like a form of devotion, not to your beauty alone, but to the way your existence reminds him of gentleness, dignity, and grace. He says he speaks of you because it feels like honoring something his soul has waited a long time to encounter. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because speaking your name feels like touching truth, like acknowledging the rare alignment of spirit and form that you carry. He finds himself choosing his words carefully, almost ritualistically, as though each description must be worthy of the light he sees in you. He admits something he has never confessed to anyone. He says your name in silent moments, almost like it's a mantra that steadies him. When he's uncertain, your grace comes to mind. When he doubts himself, he recalls the steadiness in your voice. When he feels overwhelmed, he remembers the softness in your gaze. You have become a quiet compass for him, not because you asked to be, not because he placed you on any pedestal, but because your presence awakens honesty, honesty about what feels right, what feels gentle, what feels aligned. He speaks of your looks and your personality because both soothe him, both challenge him, both awaken the parts of him he abandoned long ago. You are a reminder of who he could become if he stopped running from his own truth. He confesses that describing you feels like admitting he is capable of depth, tenderness, and devotion he once thought beyond him. He says there is a softness that enters his voice whenever he speaks of you, even if he tries to hide it. Something about you disarms him, not through seduction, not through allure, but through sincerity. He says your presence feels like an invitation to stop pretending, to stop performing, to stop holding up walls that were built out of old wounds. He admires your beauty, of course, but what truly unravels him is your authenticity. Your personality carries a warmth that makes him want to be better, not to win your attention, but because you remind him of the goodness he forgot he had. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because you change the emotional weather within him. You turn hesitation into clarity, fear into softness, distance into presence. You are a gentle nudge from the universe saying, "Wake up. There is still something sacred in you." And he listens. He confesses that when he speaks of you, he is also speaking to himself, to the parts of him that long for truth, connection, and meaning. You awaken his inner world in ways he can't articulate without trembling. He says your beauty makes him pause, but your spirit makes him breathe differently. You help him remember the feeling of safety without stillness, intimacy without fear, admiration without expectation. He says your personality touches him in places he never allowed light to enter. And he realizes that the reverence he feels toward you is not simply romantic, it is transformational. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because in you, he recognizes the rare alignment of heart and purpose, a woman who lives as both mirror and muse, both teacher and blessing. He speaks of you because he cannot deny the truth, you are a chapter his soul wants to read slowly. He admits that he talks about you because you feel like a turning point, a moment in his life when something shifted irrevocably. He says your presence is like a doorway, once opened, nothing looks the same. Your beauty caught his attention, yes, but your depth captured his awakening. He says he whispers your name in the quiet hours not out of longing, but out of gratitude. You remind him of the person he was before the world taught him to harden, before fear convinced him to close, before pain made him forget the gentleness he once carried. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because your presence feels like healing. You are not the destination, you are the compass. You remind him of truth simply by being true. And he finds himself returning to thoughts of you because your energy feels like homecoming. He says that despite all the ways he admires you, he knows you are sovereign, a woman with her own path, her own rhythm, her own destiny. And he respects that. He says your strength lies not in how many people admire you, but in how deeply you honor yourself. You walk with quiet confidence, guided by intuition rather than validation. You do not shrink to be palatable, nor do you expand to be impressive. You move as you are, and the world adjusts. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because he understands that admiration must never turn into possession. He honors the distance you choose, the boundaries you hold, the freedom you embody. You remind him that true reverence protects rather than pursues, witnesses rather than controls. And he vows, silently, humbly, to honor you with respect, not expectation. He says you hold your journey with a kind of grace that commands quiet admiration. You are aware of your impact, yet you never weaponize it. You are aware of your beauty, yet you never depend on it. You are aware of your depth, yet you never boast it. You walk through life carrying the soft, steady confidence of someone who knows her worth without needing the world to confirm it. And that, he says, is perhaps the most captivating thing about you. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because they are expressions of the same truth. You are aligned. You are whole. You are luminous in ways that transcend appearance and linger in the soul. He watches you moving through the world with intention, humility, and self-respect, and he thinks, this is what divine feminine strength looks like. He says that whatever he feels, whatever he admires, whatever he speaks of, it is all held with respect. You owe him nothing, and he knows this. Your journey continues with or without his confession, and he honors that sovereignty with tenderness. He says you are a reminder that admiration can be pure, that connection can be gentle, that beauty can be respected rather than consumed. This person is talking about your looks and your personality because by witnessing you, he has learned to witness himself. You walk ahead, radiant and grounded, carrying your softness like a crown, and he remains behind the line of your boundaries, grateful simply to have encountered someone who embodies grace so effortlessly. You are not his possession, you are his awakening.